Hello everyone, I'm Lianne Lorraine and welcome to Lectures with Lianne. In this show we capture interesting, entertaining, and informative lectures and the people that share them. Every second Friday of the month at the Community Room at the Peninsula Center Library, we are launching a brand new series called Lianne and Friends. Today, we're going to be hearing from Greg Schreiner. He is the president of Marilyn Remembered fan club. He is a pianist, a musician, a songwriter, a producer. He is a collector of over 450 costumes from the golden age of Hollywood, and he's the producer of a beautiful musical entitled Hollywood Revisited. And Greg is going to be joining us today to discuss Marilyn, his love of Marilyn. With that said, it's showtime. Take it away, Greg.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Welcome to Cal Springs Library and our new program series, Lianne and Friends. This program, along with all of the programs presented by the library, are sponsored by the Friends of the Library. And I know many of you here this morning have been following Lianne the past year or more at Hess Park and may not be familiar with the library programming and the library itself. So welcome to the library. We hope you do use it. The library is for everyone, regardless of age, interest, whatever. There is something here for you. It doesn't have to be books. There's a lot of other things going on too. Anyway, the Friends get our money from Friends membership and donations, of course. Yes. And I would like to introduce Lianne. I don't think she needs an introduction to the majority of you. You all know her. And we are so happy here at the library to have her as presenting her monthly programs for the year. It will be on the second Friday of every month at 10 o'clock here. And she has wonderful programs set up for many more months, and it will be all year long. So with no further ado, please give a very warm welcome to Lianne.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for coming. It's very nice to see you. Some new faces, and I really appreciate seeing all the people that I'm friends with through the Peninsula Seniors Lecture Series. I appreciate you being here very much. It's very meaningful to me. Besides, I also hope to bring you a good time, of course. But so today we are presenting Greg Schreiner, and if I had to assess him in two words, I would say delightful and delicious. And he really is. Greg Schreiner is a very special gentleman, and he is a gentleman, and that's so rare to meet in today's world too. He is the president of the Marilyn Remembered fan club. He is a super talented pianist, musician, songwriter, musical producer, costume collector. He has over 450 costumes in his collection from the golden age of Hollywood. He's truly amazing, and I actually had brought him to come to Peninsula Seniors originally to speak because I read about him and I'm like, oh man, I've got to see this guy. And he is delightful in every way, and he's going to be sharing a special story with you about how he fell in love with Marilyn. He's devoted decades to being in love with her and to collecting a lot of her memorabilia and her costumes and her clothes. And I could plan about 20 lectures just with Greg Schreiner with all the different aspects that are Greg. Anyway, so I hope that you will appreciate him coming here today. He drove a long way to get here. He had to leave his house early. Yes, he got a little bit of money, but believe me, he's worth far more. And I hope that you will appreciate this beautiful gown that he brought us today. This is a perfect reproduction of the dress that Marilyn Monroe wore when she sang Happy Birthday, Mr. President. And I was actually afraid it would not fit my fat size 6 dressmaker, but it did. But anyway, so please welcome very special, very wonderful, very talented Greg Schreiner.
Thank you so much, Lianne. It's delightful to be here. I can't think of anything I'd rather do than talk about my favorite subject, Marilyn Monroe. I just want to give a little disclaimer. I'm coming off a 2-week cold, so if I'm hacking a little bit, just please forgive me. And I suspect a lot of you are doing the same thing. It seems to be really going around and doesn't want to leave me for a while, but I think I'm going to be okay today. I've got a couple of cough drops here just in case. So, why do I love Marilyn Monroe? Well, let me give you a little background. As a young boy, and here's me as a young boy, actually, not that young, but quite a few years ago, actually. What I love about this photo is, of course, when people see this, they go, wow, I had no idea you knew Marilyn Monroe. And I said, well, I wish I could actually claim that. Obviously, it's a fake picture. I would be very, very old today if I was actually back then. But nevertheless, it's a great photo, and it makes me laugh when I see it. But this is how I actually looked. I know, isn't that adorable? As a young boy growing up, I really didn't know much about Hollywood at all because I lived in a town of 500 people in northern Illinois, and we didn't know anything about Hollywood. We barely had gotten a television at that point. And my mother and father took me to a drive-in theater, remember those? In, get this, Monroe, Wisconsin. I mean, how perfect, right? And the very first thing I saw there ever was a movie called Some Like It Hot. Oh my gosh, well, I think you know that movie. I absolutely fell in love with Marilyn Monroe back then. Why? I guess because I'd never seen anybody that looked like that in my little hometown of 500. And I said, I'm going to find out more about her. So I started collecting as much as I could, which was not a lot back then because I wasn't access to any of the bookstores or anything. And there really wasn't a lot out on Marilyn at that point. She was still alive. And so occasionally a fan magazine or something I would come across. But mainly, and television occasionally. Remember the Late Show, they would show movies on television. But I didn't have access to a movie theater, so other than that Monroe Drive-In. So I just kept collecting as little as I could until I got older and went to college, and then I started finding more on her. And eventually, I moved to Los Angeles in 1979 to go to school at UCLA. And that's, yeah, UCLA. And that's where I really, really finally started collecting her and eventually founded the club. Now, I just want to give you a little contrast to Marilyn and myself. Here's the Some Like It Hot that I fell in love with her. I mean, can you not fall in love with that, right? Now, Marilyn had a very interesting childhood too. As you may or may not know, she was born in Los Angeles on June 1st, 1926. But the problem is her mother was not very mentally well. She had a lot of issues. And so she was not able to take care of Marilyn. So Marilyn ended up being shuttled back and forth between foster homes, and she also lived at an orphanage in Hollywood. And this is sort of her life, unfortunately, as growing up. But it did shape her in very interesting ways, because number one, from her window at her orphanage, she could look out at the RKO sign right across the street. And believe it or not, the orphanage is still there today, and you can go up and look out at the same sign she looked out. And that kind of inspired her. Also, she was able to walk down to Grauman's Chinese Theater and put her hands in the footprints. And that also inspired her to want to be a movie star. So I think that this difficult childhood in some ways gave her this inspiration to want to go on and be a star. And that's what I'd like to think. And eventually, she married in 1942, Jim Daugherty that you see here. She was 16 years old. He was 18. He was her next door neighbor. And the reason this all happened is she had been living at this point with a friend of her mother's, Grace Goddard. And the Goddards decided they had to move back east, and they didn't want to take her with them. So they figured, well, let's just marry off to the guy next door, which they did do. And that's why she ended up being married at such an early age, and she actually left high school at 16, so she never finished her high school education. And from there, they moved to Catalina Island, where they lived, and he went off to the war and left her. And she became famous because of where she was working, at the radioplane plant in Van Nuys. And here we see a picture of her taken by David Conover, who was out sort of doing publicity pictures for the radio plant. This photo went nationwide, and because of this, she started getting offers to be on covers of magazines. And from there, she eventually got a contract at Fox, and the rest is history, as you know. I'm not going to go into her whole life story. But it just, the more and more she was seen, the more and more people wanted to see more of her. And because of this one initial photo, she became a major star. I mean, we should all be so lucky. But of course, she worked very, very hard to accomplish that as well. Now, you're wondering, why am I here today loving Marilyn beyond just moving to UCLA? Well, the first thing I did when I moved to Los Angeles is I went straight to the cemetery where she's buried, which is Westwood Village Mortuary. It's located just south of UCLA, how convenient. And I went right there. It's a very tiny cemetery, right off of Wilshire and Glendon. And this cemetery is a cemetery that really is amazingly small for what you'd expect a cemetery to be. But Marilyn was buried there because she had a couple of relatives that were buried there, and so when she died, they felt that was an appropriate place to go, as well as the fact she died not too far in Brentwood, which is the next city over. We're looking now at a picture of Jim Daugherty, taken about 15 years ago at my house. I was able to have him as a guest. This was a fellow she married when she was 16. And I was so lucky. He's aged a little, obviously, and so have I. As a fan club member, I've been so lucky to have so many people come and visit that knew Marilyn. Now, how did the club get started? Well, every year on August 5th, I would go to the cemetery to pay my respects to Marilyn. And in 1981, I was there, and I ran into 3 other people that were there also for the same reason. And so we got to talking, we thought, well, gee, we all love Marilyn, we're all here. Why don't we next year actually do a memorial service for her? Because since 1962, when she died, no one had done anything for her at all in that respect. There was no fan club, there was no memorial service. So in 1982, we founded Marilyn Remembered, and we gave our first memorial service. Ever since then, every year, we have done a memorial service on August the 5th there. And the news is out to the point now where people from all over the world fly out here to be here for the service on August the 5th. It's quite an exciting event. And it's only because Marilyn Magic gets the word out to everybody. And I'm just absolutely thrilled and delighted that that's how it happened. And because we loved each other so much, we thought, well, why not just get together and have fan club meetings? So we did. And this was one of our first meetings where we were able to invite Marilyn's first husband to come and speak. And what I loved about it when he talked about Marilyn is how sweet and innocent she was at 16. He said that she really didn't know how to do anything yet because she was so young. But she said, including cooking. But he said one thing she loved to make were peas and carrots. And I said, well, why was that? She said, because she thought they were so pretty on the plate, the colors. And he said another incident he remembered that was sort of endearing was that one time it was raining. She looked outside and they lived next to a field and there was a cow out there. And she brought the cow in the house because she was afraid it was going to get wet and she didn't like to have a wet cow. So this was the innocent, lovely Marilyn that he knew. Regrettably, because he was off to war, she eventually went to radioplane, and because of that, started becoming famous. He didn't want her to be famous. He wanted her just to be a housewife. She wanted more for her life. And so eventually they did get divorced, amicably, I might add. But nevertheless, she had bigger dreams than he had for her. So that's why they just end up staying together eventually. We'll go on now and take a look at some of the other people that I've met over the years at the club. Here we have me with Bebe Goddard. Bebe was the daughter of Grace Goddard. I mentioned earlier that she lived with Grace for quite a while. She was a friend of Marilyn's mother. And Bebe was a delightful lady. She and Marilyn were about the same age, and so they lived together whenever Marilyn lived with Grace Goddard. And Bebe remembered her again as a really fun woman. She talked about one incident where she and Marilyn, right down the street was like an alleyway and a fence, and on the other side of the fence was a drive-in theater. And there was a hole in the fence. So at night they would sneak out and take turns looking through the peephole at the movie screen. They couldn't hear any of the dialogue, but they could watch the pictures. And that's all they could afford to do back then, so they at least got to see the movie, even if they couldn't hear the movie, and I love that about her. Another special guest was Mamie Van Doren. For those who don't know, Mamie Van Doren was Universal Studios' answer to Marilyn. Unfortunately, Mamie never became nearly as famous as Marilyn, but Mamie's a survivor. She's still alive today. She lives in Laguna Beach. She's in her late 80s now and still looks fabulous. I guess she's got the secret of success there. Another famous person that we had in the club was Susan Strasberg. Susan Strasberg was the daughter of Lee Strasberg, who was Marilyn's coach. And Susan was a very dear friend and came to many of the meetings, and also every year would speak at the memorial service because her father read the eulogy at Marilyn's original service in '62, and so Susan would read that, and every year would become very emotional because it was very dear to her about her father being at the service. Susan also was a good friend of Marilyn's because they were also about the same age, and Susan talked about a couple instances that I wanted to share with you. One was that Susan felt that there was something very unique about Marilyn's spirit when she died. She said it sort of stayed on Earth, and she felt that every year it was like a circle that kept getting larger and larger and spinning outward and outward and eventually encompassing the whole world. And I think there's some truth to that, because if you've ever traveled anywhere in the world, Marilyn's everywhere. And I don't care who you talk to anywhere in the world, they know who Marilyn Monroe is. They don't know anybody else maybe, but they'll know Marilyn Monroe. There's something very magical about her spirit. And I've always felt she's been around me in my home, maybe because I own a lot of her own things that she owned. I really feel her spirit there, and so many things have come my way in very mysterious kind of ways that I kind of have to think, maybe Marilyn's spirit's guiding a few things my way. So if there's anybody here today that owns any Marilyn Monroe items, I would love to have them. Thank you very much. Also, she talked about how Marilyn was able to become Marilyn Monroe whenever she wanted to. Not by makeup or hair or costume, but some inner switch she would turn on. She said they'd be walking down the street in New York, and Marilyn would be just dressed normally, not a lot of makeup or anything, and nobody's noticing. And then she said, Susie, do you want to see Marilyn Monroe? And then she'd make some inner connection, and suddenly she would become Marilyn Monroe, and everybody was suddenly noticing her. Isn't that a magical thing to be able to do? And if you've ever seen Marilyn on the screen, and I assume a lot of you have because you're here today, you know that there's a certain magic that happens on the screen. There's a luminescence. And you can't take your eyes off of her, can you? I mean, she's just like, wow, that woman is amazing. The same feeling I felt when I was a little boy. Is there something wonderful about her on the screen? And in images of her two stills. It's an amazing event, and God bless her for that. Okay, here we have me with Sidney Gilleroff. I don't know if you know that name or not, but Sidney Gilleroff was the hair man at MGM Studios. And he did the hair for everybody. And if you ever watch an MGM movie, it'll say, Hair by Sidney Gilleroff. And he knew all the secrets of Hollywood, and he adored Marilyn and did her hair many, many times, and even wrote a book about his experiences with Marilyn. And he was an amazing fellow, and just a thrill to have someone like him in my presence, and I treasured his friendship very much. Here's another star that I got to know, Eli Wallach. Eli Wallach starred with Marilyn in The Misfits, her last completed film. And he also adored her, valued her friendship, and was very saddened at her death, one of many. Here we have me with Don Murray. Don Murray was an actor who appeared with Marilyn in Bus Stop. They had a lot of scenes together, and he also adored Marilyn. And this was a movie that made Don Murray. He was relatively an unknown at the time, and he said it was just an amazing experience to work with her. I'm giving him an award, by the way, right here, for his many years in filmdom, and it was a thrill for me to be able to do that. Now we have a woman who, I don't know if you recognize her or not, she's Mrs. Joseph Cotton. Joseph Cotton starred with Marilyn in Niagara, And her name is Patricia Medina. Perhaps you know the name Patricia Medina. She was a fairly big star in the 50s. I think she's still with us. I have not seen her for several years, but she came and spoke about her husband and his love of Marilyn also. Aren't I lucky getting to know all these incredible people? Oh my gosh, a little boy from a 500 little town in Illinois. Amazing. Here we have me with George Chakiris. George Chakiris you probably recognize because he won the Academy Award for acting in West Side Story. But he also appeared with Marilyn in 3 films, Jennifer Blonde's How to Marry a Millionaire, and There's No Business Like Show Business. And he really adored Marilyn also, and we'll see him in a still later with Marilyn and Jennifer Blonde's. But great guy, he's a dear friend of mine now, and I get to see him quite often. Again, what a lucky man I am. Now we have me with 2 people that were very dear in my life. Kathleen Hughes, an actress from the 1950s, and her husband, Stanley Rubin. Stanley Rubin was producer of one of Marilyn's films, River of No Return, and Kathleen was up for several roles against Marilyn. She lost them all, and Marilyn got them. And they're dear people. Kathleen is still with us. I just went to her 90th birthday party, and she still looks fabulous, I must say. So something's working there, definitely. Here we have me with William Trevia. William Trevia was Marilyn's costume designer in almost all of her films. Maybe you recognize the name from 20th Century Fox, where he worked for many, many years. He adored Marilyn. They were actually very good friends. And he's really the one that gave Marilyn Monroe her look, because those amazing costumes she wore were all designed by William Trevia. And if you've ever watched one of the Marilyn movies, you know how incredibly over-the-top her costumes are. They're just absolutely stunning costumes. And he's the one that gave her all of that. And thank God for that. And he's the one that designed such things as the famous pink dress that she wears in Jennifer Blonde when she's singing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. And he also designed the famous white subway dress that she wears in when she's over the subway grate. I'm sure you've all seen that picture from 7 Year Itch. Yeah, that's a William Trevia design also. Would that he had the money that those dresses sold for. That dress sold for recently $4.5 million. Can you believe it, the white dress? Wow. That's a lot for one little simple white frock, isn't it? Indeed. Here we have me with Jane Russell. Yeah, Jane was a lovely, lovely woman. She and I were at Grauman's Chinese with this photo. If you remember back about 20 years ago, a stamp came out with Marilyn on the stamp. So we were there to initiate the inauguration of the stamp at Grauman's Chinese Theater, and they asked myself and Jane to do that. I mean, please, how wonderful, Jane Russell. I adored her, and she was a really amazing woman, very down to earth. In fact, she said that Marilyn had a problem coming out of her dressing room. The directors always got very frustrated because she was so insecure about herself. And Jane would just come along and say, "Come on, Blondie, let's go." And she'd pull her out of the dressing room and onto the set. So Jane and she really were good friends and got along very well together. This is one of my favorite people. You won't probably recognize her because she wasn't famous, but her name was Evelyn Moriarty, and she was Marilyn's stand-in and double in her movies. So she got to be with Marilyn a lot, though you don't really get to see her much, except occasionally in long shots. If you've ever seen the outtakes from Marilyn's movie she didn't finish, Something's Got to Give, there's a famous pool scene where she's paddling around, supposedly with no clothes on. Well, a lot of that's not Marilyn actually, but Evelyn, doing a lot of that long shot stuff. But Marilyn and she really loved each other. In fact, Evelyn said you had to be careful if you admired anything of Marilyn's. The next day there would be a package at your door with that item in front of it. Because Marilyn was so generous, she just loved to give things to people and make them happy. And Evelyn, in fact, was so devastated at Marilyn's death that when she died, she asked to be buried near Marilyn, and she is today. Her grave overlooks Marilyn. So kind of wonderful how that Marilyn affected so many people in that wonderful way. I guess it shows you that Marilyn had a great influence just beyond us fans. One thing that I'm able to do with my collection is travel all over the world. I did an exhibit 4 years ago at the Ferragamo Museum in Florence, Italy. And here you see the exhibit advertised above the doorway to that exhibit. I mean, isn't it wonderful? Unfortunately, usually I don't get to go with the exhibit, just the costumes. So they've seen a lot more of the world than I have, but oh well. Then here's what the exhibit looked like inside. It was quite spectacular. Wish I'd have been there. And here's another one of it. And here we have me at the Hollywood Museum, where I've done exhibits, and I still have exhibits going on. The Hollywood Museum is located in the old Max Factor building. Maybe some of you have been there, at the corner of Hollywood and Highland in Los Angeles, or Hollywood. It's a great museum. It's got a lot of beautiful things. And here I am with Lonnie Anderson. Oh my gosh, she came and helped me present my exhibit. She looks a little like Marilyn, doesn't she? She's kind of like a current Marilyn, you might say. And still quite beautiful, don't you think? I don't think she's that young at this point, but we should all look so good, right? I think she's maybe around 50. Not bad for 50. Definitely. And check it out, by the way. The museum is open Wednesday through Sunday, and it's a great museum to visit. Okay. Now, because I think it was mentioned that I'm also a pianist, I teach at Cerritos College and Santa Monica College. I thought I would share with you a Marilyn song. This is a song that she sang in River of No Return. It's the theme song. And she loved this song so much, and I don't know if you guys know this song. It's a really beautiful ballad. So I thought I'd play it for you. May I? Yes. Okay. Beautiful song, isn't it? I really love it. Oh, there's my clicker. Marilyn has always been thought of by a lot of people as a dumb blonde. However, she wasn't dumb at all. She had a very high IQ. Even though she did not graduate from high school, she actually went back to school at UCLA and studied some courses, and also really read a lot. And she became friends with several very famous literary people. Here we see her with Carl Sandburg. She was very much in love with him, and he adored her. And I think you can see the look in their eyes. There's a real love there, isn't there, between the two of them? And certainly he was no dummy, but he saw in her a brilliance, a mental brilliance that he adored about her. Plus, she was just such a lovely person, too. Also, she was very good friends with Dame Edith Sitwell. I don't know if you know who that is. She was a very famous poet and a really brilliant woman. And the two of them just hit it off brilliantly and became quite good friends. And again, I think you can see the same kind of love happening there. Marilyn's idea of reading a book was not to read a novel. What she loved were people like Dostoevsky, Walt Whitman, Thomas Wolfe, Marcel Proust, Kafka, Emerson, Shaw. These are the kind of people she was reading. This is heavyweight stuff. Marilyn definitely was a person who wanted to grow and learn. And eventually, as you know too, she wanted to grow as an artist. And so she went to New York and left Hollywood and decided to study with Lee Strasberg to become a better actress, because she felt they were just pigeonholing her into dumb blonde pictures, and she didn't want any more of that. She wanted to really be a fine actress and someone that she could be proud of. Now, let's take a look at a little bit of my collection. Here's where I live in Los Angeles. Humble little home here, but it's what I call home, and it's what? It's pink. It is pink. Well, what other color could I paint it, right? Marilyn Monroe, you know, it has to be pink. I know, isn't that so obvious? But I like the color pink anyway. Believe it or not, Marilyn's first home was just 4 blocks from where I live. When she was a little tiny, tiny baby, she lived on Wilshire Boulevard in Hauser. And I'm 1 block from Hauser and a couple blocks from Wilshire. So somehow it just feels like I'm in the right place, somehow. And I didn't know that when I bought the house. Here's one of the parts of my, what I call the Marilyn room, which is one of the rooms in my home. You see here one of my dresses that I own of Marilyn, and as you can see at the bottom, there's Marilyn wearing it. And that's not Marilyn standing there, that's a cardboard cutout. And then below that is a director's chair that I own, Marilyn's director's chair from 20th Century Fox, which is, to my knowledge, is the only one in existence. And what I love about it, and you really can't see from that picture, unfortunately, is the picture, I found a picture of that chair with a family standing around it, being very proud that they're getting to be near Marilyn's chair at 20th Century Fox, and so they must have been visiting or something, and they're all beaming because there's the Marilyn chair that I have. What they don't realize is right behind them is Marilyn Monroe standing there. It's like, don't you see Marilyn? You're looking at the chair? I don't get it. But at least I was able to find a picture of the chair, which was, I think, kind of a wonderful thing to do. And there you can see a look. You see that? You see Marilyn back there? Isn't that weird? It's like, they have not a clue that she's right there, but look at how thrilled they are they're near the chair. Isn't that the weirdest thing? So if you want the same kind of picture, just come to my home and I'll let you stand behind my chair, okay? And here's a display case I have. I own almost every Marilyn Monroe doll that was ever made, and every plate that was ever made. These are not things owned by her, of course, but nevertheless, they're images of her. And if you're there at Christmas time, and I just took the tree down, my tree is covered with over 300 Marilyn Monroe ornaments. It's an all Marilyn Monroe tree. I mean, are you getting the picture here that I'm a little bit obsessed? Oh well, and every room in my house is covered with Marilyn Monroe, and if you talk to Lianne, she will vouch for this. There's Marilyn Monroe everywhere, right?
Not enough.
Not enough. You can never have too much Marilyn, right? Okay. And there's another picture of the Marilyn room, a bigger picture. And you'll see later, I'll show you some other things, but the dresser behind that was the dresser that was next to Marilyn's bed the night she died. So I keep thinking, if only that dresser could talk, we would know exactly how Marilyn died, but it hasn't told me anything yet. But the fact that I own it, I'm just absolutely thrilled to have that in my collection, for sure. And there's a close-up of the dresser, and next to it is a chair from her home, and also our china cabinet. Aren't I lucky to have all these things? Now I just want the home to go with it. I won't have it. There you see a picture of the dresser in her room the night she died. This is a take of the night she died. Her body has just been removed. And as you can see, she had no other furniture in the room yet. She had just moved into the house a few months before and had not purchased, so everything's on the floor. All she had was just a mattress on the floor and the bedroom dresser, and of course things piled on top of it. So I feel lucky that I have one of the few things that she actually had purchased by this time. This is a check that I own, and what's wonderful about it is you check the date. August the 4th, 1962. That's the day she died. So this is probably the last thing she ever signed. It was signed to Eunice Murray, her housekeeper, and as you can see, Eunice was unable to cash the check because whenever anybody dies, they freeze the funds immediately. So she had to wait 2 years to get this check finally cashed. But as you see, it says deceased, so they won't allow you to, they returned it to her. But I just feel very lucky to have something that's so close to the last, maybe the last thing she ever wrote. That's kind of a weird thought, isn't it, actually? And here we see what looks like the dress that you see in front of you. This dress was designed by Jean-Louis, who was the husband of Loretta Young, for those of you who know that story. And Marilyn asked him, he was a designer at the studios, and she asked him to design a dress for her. So he made a dress out of nude souffle and covered it with thousands of Swarovski crystals. So that's what you're looking at right there. That dress came up for auction in 1999 when her estate was up for sale. And so I went to New York because I said, I'm going to get that dress. It was estimated at $40,000 to $50,000, but I know. But I said, who cares? It's my life savings, I'll do it. So I went there, and I raised my paddle, and I just missed it. It went for $1.4 million. Yeah. But the story's not over. The dress came up for auction again 3 years ago here in Los Angeles. I thought maybe this time nobody will want it, and I'll just get it really cheap. Ha ha ha. And I had a little more money to spend by now, so I mortgaged my home, and went to the auction, raised my paddle, just missed it again. This time it went for $5.6 million. So unless a lot of you would like to donate some money to me, I probably will never have it. However, I did get an exact replica, as we mentioned earlier, that was made for Sarah LaFleur to wear. Here we see Sarah wearing it in the movie The Women of Camelot. It was a movie about the Kennedy family, and they recreated that scene, and they recreated the dress. So I may not have the original, but at least, folks, you can get a vague idea of what it looks like, okay? And if any of you want to rent this dress out to wear somewhere, let me know. I know. You'll get attention, trust me very much, on that one. Okay, and there's what the dress looks like on display. That's the real one, not mine, by the way. But you can see they're almost identical. They really are very, very close to the same thing. Now, you're wondering, why am I showing you in a refrigerator? This was Marilyn Monroe's refrigerator. I own it. Can you believe that? Now you know I'm really crazy, right? Well, I had a picture of Marilyn's refrigerator from her home, and one day I was reading the Times and the want ads and for sale. They said, Marilyn Monroe's refrigerator for sale. Ha ha, sure. Well, I went and checked my photo out. It matched. You know why it's so unique? Number one, this was 1962. This was a brand new refrigerator back then. It is an amazing hot point for its time. It has swing-out shelves. It was frost-free, which back then was very unusual in '62. Usually you had to chop off the ice all the time. And Marilyn took and painted the sides of them, I don't know if you can see that, dark blue, to match the tile in her kitchen that she had purchased in Mexico. So it's very special to me, and she had her last meal out of this, a hard-boiled egg and a glass of grapefruit juice. So, if you want to come and see Marilyn's refrigerator, you can come anytime and see it. I know, they're going, man's really over the top now. Okay, here's one of the dresses I own. Now, why am I showing you this dress with Jean Tierney wearing it? Well, because it was originally designed for Jean Tierney to wear on the Riviera by her husband, Ola Cassini. You know Ola Cassini, the famous designer? She married him, believe it or not. And he designed this dress for her to wear in a Danny Kaye film. As was the want many times, particularly when you weren't a real famous star, they would take and have other people wear the same clothes after the fact. And in fact, here's Marilyn wearing the same dress. And I think Marilyn looks better in it than Jean, actually, as beautiful as Jean might be. Here's another dress I own of Marilyn's. This is made out of silver lame. It was made to be worn in Gentlemen for Blondes. The scene was cut from the film, and so she wore it outside for publicity purposes. Here she is with Bob Hope and Jack Benny. Doesn't she look just absolutely radiant? It's silver lame, isn't it, Marilyn? It's so Marilyn. And here is a picture of the dress, the way it looks today in my collection. Still beautiful. It's a little more tarnished now after all these years, but it's still holding up pretty well. Here's another dress I own of Marilyn's. She wore this in The Prince and the Showgirl, one of my favorite Marilyn films. In fact, it's the only thing she wears in the movie, which is sort of a running joke in the movie that she never has another dress to wear. But it's an absolutely gorgeous dress, and it's one of my favorites of all time. And there we have it. I had it on display recently, this past year, at an exhibit at the Television Academy. It's so fragile now that we can't hang it anymore on a mannequin, but we can lay it out on the ground like that. Not on the ground, but on a display form like that. So that's, it's still looking good. It's just not the same, strength that it had back then. But as you know, when things are from the 1950s, they get more fragile as they get older, right? Don't worry, I'm including myself in that, folks, okay? I was alive in the 50s too, so I totally get that as well. But it's still a beautiful dress, and it's beautifully made. It's made out of silk with lots of little pearls sewn on it. It's quite stunning. And here's another dress worn by somebody else first. This is Hildegard Neff. I don't know if you know that actress. She was big in the 50s, a German actress. She wore this in a movie called The Snows of Kilimanjaro. And then, later, look who else wore it. There's Marilyn. And you can see on the left is Hildegard in the movie, and on the right is Marilyn wearing the same dress. Isn't that fascinating how studios get their money's worth? You probably never realized that, did you? But they could be cheap, too, a little bit, if they wanted to be. Yeah. Now here we have Marilyn in the famous pink dress that she wore, as you know, in Jump for Blondes, when she sings Time is a Girl's Best Friend. And if you look to the very right, the guy with his head peeking out on the very right there, that's George Chakiris. He was in that particular scene with Marilyn as a dancer. He wasn't known then. He doesn't even get credit in the movie. But there he was, dancing along with Marilyn in one of her most famous scenes of all time, which is kind of cool. Now, take a look at this. I bet you've never seen this before, have you? This is a very unusual costume. This is the original. This is what she was supposed to wear when she was singing that song. And this is, I own this costume, believe it or not. Another one you can borrow if you want to wear it anywhere. And you know what? They got rid of this costume. Do you know why? They felt it looked a little too much like a stripper costume. It's made entirely of rhinestones, which makes sense because it looked like diamonds. She's wearing all diamonds. But nevertheless, they decided against it. And that's what the back looked like. It's got a tail. I know. Isn't that weird? I even have the fan, believe it or not. And I've had it on display. It's quite a spectacular costume, but it never made it into the film. So I've given you a little piece of information here. And there we have, again, the way it actually looked when she wore it. So I think it would be appropriate at this time to actually play for you that song now, okay? I knew you'd all know that song, right? That's really a famous song of Marilyn Monroe's. And she's amazing, isn't it? That's her own singing, too. She had a pretty darn good voice. So it's kind of fun to see that. Here's another dress I own of Marilyn's. This is from Let's Make Love. And that's Yves Montand with her. This dress is pink with voluminous skirt of yards and yards and yards and yards of silk chiffon. And the reason they did that is it's a scene where there's a wind blowing, a big fan, and it blows the dress all over the place. It looks quite spectacular. Here's the actual dress in my collection, what it looks like today. Isn't it beautiful? It's just so Marilyn Monroe. Here's a fur coat I own. This is white beaver. Arthur Miller, standing next to her third husband, gave it to her, and she looks radiant in it. Here's another picture of her wearing that coat. Isn't it gorgeous? When they got divorced, it was said that she let her dog Moth sleep on it. I don't know if that's true or not. Nevertheless, it's a beautiful fur coat, and I'm thrilled to have that in my collection. And no, I do not wear it on cold winter nights. This is Marilyn's home. It was at 12305 5th Helena Drive. It's in Brentwood. It's still there. And it's quite lovely, isn't it? I mean, it's a charming looking room. It's not huge. It's under 2,000 square feet. 3 bedroom, 2 bath. But it's quite charming and beautiful. It's in a cul-de-sac. Marilyn was not into ostentation. She did not care for a big mansion. She wanted a simple home. And she bought it in 1962, the year she died, in January, and moved in. And she was still in the process of furnishing it. It was a Spanish hacienda-style house, so she was going to Mexico to find furniture to really fit the home. So the home was not even totally furnished when she died, which is kind of sad because she was having such a good time doing all of that. But unfortunately, she was not able to complete that. Now we're looking at the chapel that the service took place where Marilyn died in August 5th, 1962. This chapel was built just about 3 weeks before Marilyn died, and Marilyn was the very first one to be in this chapel. The chapel still exists today. This is how it looks today, actually. And this is where we hold the service every year. And aren't we lucky that they let us in every year to do the service there? They know how important Marilyn is to this cemetery. Every day, hundreds of people flock to this cemetery to pay tribute to Marilyn Monroe. Here is a picture of Marilyn's half-sister, Bernice. It's her really only living relative. And Bernice was able to take over in charge with Joe DiMaggio. The two of them together put the service together because Marilyn had no other living relatives. And so she and Joe DiMaggio, who was her second husband, stepped in to take care of the funeral service. And Hollywood was not invited, only Marilyn's close friends and family. And I think you can see a resemblance there. You can see that they did look alike, even they were half-sisters. There's still definitely a resemblance between the two of them. And they did know each other. They didn't see a lot of each other because Bernice Miracle, which is her name, lived in Florida and Marilyn lived in California. So they only saw each other a few times over Marilyn's lifetime, but they loved each other and got along. And when Marilyn died, part of her estate went to Bernice, who eventually got to sell it and make a lot of money. So she did well that way. Here I am inside the chapel conducting a memorial service. As you can see, every year the service is packed. Some years we have to actually set up chairs outside and videos because we have so many people from all over the world. And we don't advertise. We don't say anything. People just know on August 5th to come to the cemetery, and there we are. And every year we try to have guest speakers, people that knew Marilyn. It's not getting easy anymore. We're down to our very last handful, and within a few years there'll be nobody left. I mean, think about it, you know. Marilyn was born in 1926, so there aren't a lot of people left that knew her anymore, but there are still a few. Here's another picture of it with you can see all the flowers people donate. It's just tremendous, the love and outpouring for Marilyn. This many years after the fact, not many people still generate this kind of love this many years after their death, you know. And there I am speaking there. The guest speakers are lined up along the front there. And I'm introducing them all as we go along. And there's me, looking very, I don't know, something. And there we are. This was taken last year at the memorial service. The chapel's been remodeled, as you can tell, but it's all white now, white marble and white stone. It looks pretty. It's a little sterile for my taste. I like the old way better, but this is how we had it set up. And again, you can see the beautiful flowers. Here's one of our guest speakers this past year. Her name is Jeannie Phillips. You may know her as Dear Abby. Yeah. She's an amazing lady, and Marilyn was a great influence in her life, and we're thrilled to have her as one of the guest speakers. Another guest speaker is Susan Bernard. She's the daughter of Bernard of Hollywood. Bruno Bernard was one of the big Hollywood photographers and put a lot of books out of Hollywood stars. And Susan's carrying on his legacy today. This is Susan Lloyd. She's the granddaughter of Harold Lloyd. Perhaps you know who that is. Harold Lloyd was a famous movie star and has a unique story that he photographed Marilyn in 3D. The only one. He loved 3D, and he had a 3D camera. So she's holding it's not 3D there, but these were all taken in 3D. So if you had special glasses, you could see Marilyn in 3D. Oh my gosh. And so she has some interesting stories to tell about that particular day and the filming, and lovely woman. This is a movie actress. Her name is Terry Moore, and she was a contemporary of Marilyn's in the 1950s. She was also married to Howard Hughes, and she and Marilyn were good friends, and she's 92 now. Looks pretty good, huh, for 92? She's holding up pretty well. And she's still a pistol. I gotta tell you, she's a really unique character, but I adore her. I think she's a lot of fun, and she's been very gracious. We're so lucky to get all these people that are willing to come in and to share their stories of Marilyn. This is Marilyn's plaque at her crypt. She's buried above ground. And this is the plaque that donates, I don't know if you can see, but the marble behind it is kind of pinkish. The reason for that is people keep kissing it. And over time, even though they wipe it off, the lipstick can't totally come off. And eventually they have to take the marble off and replace it because it becomes so pink. They're not supposed to kiss it, but people kiss it anyway. So, no, I have not kissed it. All right. And here's the crypt, and here's some of the flowers from last year. And just to the left, though, this time he was not buried there yet, is where Howard Hughes would be buried, is buried now. Not Howard Hughes. Hugh Hefner, sorry. Sort of the same thing, isn't it? HH. I hadn't thought of that before. No wonder I'm confused. Anyway, and outside the crypt also, we, the fan club, left a bench because we wanted people to be able to come and contemplate Marilyn when they're sitting there. So we did a marble bench for her, which is there today. So if you go to the crypt, you will see that marble bench, which we're very proud of, that donates how much we love Marilyn. It's a cool thing. The club has been in existence since 1982, and 4 years ago, we were approached by a movie producer to see if we'd be interested in having a whole 90-minute film done about us. I said, sure. So, for a year, he spent that much time following us around, filming us at our many events that we do, and out of it came the film With Her. It's a 90-minute film about the club. I'm in a great deal of it, obviously, because the club has a lot to do with me, and it also follows several other members of the club on why they love Marilyn also. If you want to know more about the club and just about why we're all so weird and crazy and love her so much, you can watch this. It's available on iTunes for $2.98, and you can click on it and watch the film. It's a really good film. We got to see it at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood when it was running there. But it's no longer in theaters, but you can catch it on iTunes. So, in conjunction with that too, I did bring with me today a 25-page booklet that the club put out about the club, and it features a lot of fabulous color photos. It's a glossy thing. It normally sells for $10. Today, if you want one, $1. So just let me know afterwards, and we got a few up here if you'd like to take one home as a memory, just for the great photos and nothing else of Marilyn, because they're really beautiful. They're beautiful enough to be framed. Actually, you could cut them out and frame them if you wanted to. So anyway, just let me know afterwards if you like one of those. Okay. So if you're interested at all to also learn more about the club, you can go to our website, which is there's the booklet I just mentioned. Here's our website, marilynremembered.org. It's really a fascinating website. You'll see a lot about the club and our history and a lot of the people that have been with the club over the years, famous people. And if you want to join, it takes about 30 seconds, and it's totally free, no charge. So what we'll do then is give you access to all of the things that we do and let you know when we have events coming up. And you can come to anything, and there's no charge. Isn't that great? We're not out to make money. We've never done it for money. I just do it because I love Marilyn. And I've never sold anything. Obviously, I'm sitting on a gold mine. The 12 dresses alone, as you can see, would be worth several $1 million. But I don't care about that. I didn't ever buy it for that reason, and I don't see myself selling it. It's just not the reason I bought it. So check out our website, and then below that is my website, which features everything in my collection. So if you want to see all of my collection, themarilynmonroesite.com. Anyway, here is the eulogy. Just sit back and pretend you're there now in the chapel, August 5th. Marilyn's casket would be right there. She had an open casket. Her makeup man, Whitey Snyder, and Sidney Gilleroff came in and did her hair and makeup. And she looked absolutely beautiful. And this is what Lee said, and this was read by him the first time, and then Susan Strasberg read it every year until she passed away, and now I read it. Actually, no, I don't read it. I take that back. Now, we found a recording from that day of him reading it, so we actually play that, but I'm going to read it today. Marilyn Monroe was a legend. In her own lifetime, she created a myth of what a poor girl from a deprived background could attain. For the entire world, she became a symbol of the eternal feminine. But I have no words to describe the myth and legend. I did not know this Marilyn Monroe. We gather here today knew only Marilyn, a warm human being, impulsive and shy, sensitive, and in a fear of rejection, yet ever avid for life and reaching out for fulfillment. I will not insult the privacy of your memory of her, a privacy she sought and treasured, by trying to describe her, whom you knew, to you who knew her. In our memories of her, she remains alive, not only a shadow on a screen or a glamorous personality. For us, Marilyn was a devoted and loyal friend, a colleague constantly reaching for perfection. We shared her pain and difficulties and some of her joys. She was a member of our family. It is difficult to accept the fact that her zest for life has been ended by this tragic, dreadful accident. Despite the heights and brilliance she attained on the screen, she was planning for the future. She was looking forward to participating in many exciting things which she had planned. In her eyes and in mine, her career was just beginning. The dream of her talent, which she had nurtured as a child, was not a mirage. When she first came to me, I was amazed at the startling sensitivity which she possessed, in which she remained fresh and undimmed. She expressed herself and possessed a beautiful talent. Others were as physically beautiful as she was, but there was obviously something more in her, something that made people recognize her performances and identify with her. She had a luminous quality, a combination of wistfulness, radiance, yearning, to set her apart and yet make everyone wish to be a part of it, to share in the childish naivete, which at once she was so shy and yet so vibrant. This quality was even more evident when she was on the stage. I am truly sorry the public who loved her did not have an opportunity to see her as we did in many of the roles that foreshadowed what she would have become. Without a doubt, she would have been one of the really great actresses of the stage. Now it is all at an end. I hope that her death will stir sympathy and understanding for a sensitive artist and woman who brought joy and pleasure to the world. I cannot say goodbye. Marilyn never liked goodbyes. But in that peculiar way she had of turning things around so that they faced reality, I will say au revoir. For the country to which she is gone, we must all someday visit.
Wow, what a marvelous Marilyn presentation. Greg is so talented. We hope that you'll join us next month, February 8th at 10 o'clock a.m. here at the Peninsula Center Library at 10 o'clock a.m. in the community room, when we'll be joined by legendary jazz artist David Benoit. Thanks again. Hope to see you next time.